What's up, people? My name is Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and this is part 7 in what I hope is a never ending series of rankings and reviewings of the Grateful Dead's Dave's Picks, their archival release series of live concerts and pretty much live concerts. They haven't really gone the Dick's Picks route yet, where they take a bunch of songs from different shows and simulate a live concert, though they have done that on some of the bonus discs. And what we have for Volume 7, and so I'm going to talk about Volume 7, and then I will rank the first 7, and then as we go, I'm ranking them in order, so we don't know what number 44 is until we get to number 44, etc. And what we have for number 7 is a complete show, no bonus disc material, 3 discs from April 24th, 1978. It is a complete 78 show. And 78 is a year where, after the absolute, possibly, arguably, some would argue, I wouldn't, but I respect their argument, that 77 was a peak, as in maybe one of the best years the Dead have, along with maybe anything in 72, 73, or 74. I would argue 78 was kind of a letdown year. It seemed like they were transitioning, problems with certain band members just kind of not in it as much as they used to be, at least maybe mentally or physically or health-wise. So there was weird transition energy going on. But this is one of those shows where might not look all that special on paper, but they bring the energy and they bring it well. And it has 2 really strong things going for it. An absolutely immaculate first set that is just played perfectly, and, not to bury the headline, but probably the best drums ever. I'm not a big fan of drums. I'll listen to them. I enjoy them. But every time I listen to this show, I actually look forward to the drums. And when we get to the drums, I'm invested. It's a whole 14 minutes long, so it's a long drums. The whole drum space, sort of drums, Rhythm Devils, I guess, as it's labeled on the CD, started in 78. So early, I think January 78, we got our first legitimate drums. Instead of just a drum break in the middle of a song, we got drums. And then space, in which there were no drummers and the rest of the band make noises. So that started to appear in 78. So we're about 4 months into this being a thing, maybe 3 months into this being a thing. And this drum is just spectacular. And a lot of it has to do with the entire energy that the entire show brings. There is a very disco energy to this. There is a definite disco groove. They quote and mess around with Staying Alive at one point in the first set. The intro to drums, it comes out of a Terrapin Station jam in the second set, and it almost sounds like they're going to go into Dancing in the Streets. It's a very like you could hear it going to go into dancing, but they don't go into dancing. That disco energy just kind of carries through what turns out to be a very exploratory, deep space, heavy on the noise, almost a Pink Floyd-ish type Rhythm Devils. And I would say you could take the first 30 seconds to 45 seconds of drums and loop it and just drop, or, just lay a ridiculous disco bass line over it, and add some bass wah-wah guitar rhythm over it, and you'd have a legitimate disco jam. That is how funky these drums are. The Rhythm Devils are. Starts off like that, and then we go into more traditional drums. Then we go into some really deep space drums where they're making noise and using all sorts of percussion. Sounds like something you could find on a Pink Floyd album, anywhere between Saucerful and Echoes. There's even a part of it which sounds like it could be in the middle of, not Echoes Metal, there's even a part that sounds like it could be in the middle of Echoes. So it's a really fascinating Rhythm Devils, and I think one that's definitely worth checking out. Other than that, I think the first set is incredibly strong, really fun, a lot of high energy. I hate to say this, and I'm not saying this is man, this is a bad set, the highlight is this. I'm saying this is such a good set that the highlight is Big River. in a good way. They elevate Big River, and I swear there's like a full-on disco jam in Big River. Like the I think it's the last guitar solo just feels like a disco Big River. Like it is just infectious. It is a groove that you want to dance to. Like I wish they discified Big River more often because it would make it way more enjoyable. But it is like just little things like that. And the energy is just so strong throughout the entire first set that the first set is just an incredible listen. And the set list is pretty strong too. Um, and what you get in the first set, which is the entirety of disc one, you get a Promised Land opener, Ramble on Rose, a Me and My Uncle, Into the Disco Big River, a Friend of the Devil, we're into the slow Friend of the Devils at this point, a Cassidy, Brown Eyed Women, a Passenger, It Must Have Been the Roses, which is always nice to hear, and a really good Music Never Stopped, which not quite full on disco, but definitely has a groove to it that not all Music Never Stops have. So just a really solid, fun, high energy, well played first set. That, in a way, almost feels like they left it all on the stage and didn't save enough to make their way through the second set. Um, the second set is good, but I think after the first set, it's almost somewhat of a disappointment because you're maybe expecting more. You're maybe expecting them to lean into the disco a little more, which they kind of do in the Scarlet Begonias jam, but they don't really do it. But the second set starts off with the Scarlet Fire, and I would say it's a great Scarlet Begonias, and the jam is high energy. It's really infectious. But every time Phil starts playing the fire bass notes in the middle of the jam, every time I'm like, oh, it's too soon. Like, no, you had to let this ride out a little longer. You had to like let it ride to the point where like, oh no, now we need to go into fire. So it comes at a moment where like the Scarlet is peaking and he's like taking that energy and like pushing it forward into fire to give fire that Scarlet energy. But every time it happens, I'm like, no, 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 no. Let it like naturally come down and then let us ease into fire. Instead, it's like, oh, we're up here. Let's jump into fire when we're at a high. And if I have a complaint about the Scarlet Fire, it's that. I think the Scarlet could have gone on for another minute or two, and it would have made it all maybe a little bit better. Other than that, it's a really strong Scarlet Fire, about a 25-minute Scarlet Fire. Then we get a Good Lovin'. Don't have anything to say about a Good Lovin'. I guess I'm happier when it's at the end of the second set, so we just kind of whatever. I don't know. Doesn't work well after a Scarlet Fire. So yeah, definitely not a fan of the song to begin with. This placement is pretty horrible. Another thing that maybe ruins the energy of the second set. Then we get a Terrapin Station. And the lady with the fan part of the Terrapin Station is kind of weak. It's a little bit timid. It's a little bit lacking in confidence or maybe energy. But then as soon as they go into the Terrapin Station, the inspiration, like that's it. It's done. I'm over. I love this song. I'm back in the set full on. I can forgive the Good Lovin'. That part is just, every line is just so quotable to me. And there's a lot of times when I go to work in the morning and it's still dark out when I'm heading to school to get ready for the day. And the spiral light of Venus is shining first and shining best. And that just gets in my head everything from that on. I'm like, from the northwest corner. And Jerry's just delivering this and hitting it. And they go into a nice jam after the vocals. Not a super long or super convoluted jam, but it's a strong finish after a kind of a weak lady with a fan. Then that goes into the Rhythm Devils, which again starts off with it sounds like they're going into dancing in the streets, turns into be like a full-on 14-minute Rhythm Devils. High energy, and then it kind of goes into where they're just doing solos, and then it just goes into like this deep, dark percussion space that sounds like it could have been on Ummagumma or it could have been on Adam Hart Mother. It sounds like they're going into some Pink Floyd territory here. It's pretty awesome. That goes into a nice, a pretty healthy space, and again, the space has like remnants of echoes in there or something you could find in the middle of like a Dogs or yeah, something like that. One of those deep space moments that Pink Floyd has sort of in the middle of their really long songs. So that part works really well. Space has some definite the other one energy in it. Like Jerry's pushing the other one. I want to say Phil is even pushing the other one at some point. But I think it's Bob. Maybe it's the drummers. They're like jump into. They're not even asking. At some point, like you can feel it's going to go into the other one, and like that's the energy that the rhythm devils, that the drums in space have created. Definite dark other one energy. But Bob and somebody in the drums pushes a not fade away, so they go into a not fade away, and the not fade away just never ever catches fire. It's almost like they're trying to force other one energy into it, but it doesn't work. And then after they're done with the verses, as they're trying to transition into Black Peter, it just sort of kind of like stumbles and falls apart. And it's kind of interesting, but it doesn't seem like it's a purposeful stumbling and fumbling. It just seems like they're not able to get the transition together. So it has this weird energy. It's kind of a neat listen. And I think if you didn't have that sort of other one sort of like serving in space, the not fade away might be a little better, but I think it just comes across for me as somewhat of a disappointment. And then they go into Black Peter, and again, the Black Peter is just like, it's effective and it works, but there's very little energy in it. But it works because the song's about a man who's lying in his bed and dying, right? So that lack of energy works. And then the solo at the end completely redeems the whole thing. Like it is a tortured solo. It is like a weird Jerry fragmented trying to squeeze it out as he's dying solo. The solo, 100% effective, and is really, along with the Terrapin Station part and the Scarlet Fire, the definite one of the highlights of the second set. So we start strong, we've got a nice strong part in the middle, we kind of end strong, but then we go into it around and around. It's also kind of slow, also not as upbeat as you want in around to be at this point. And then the encore is Werewolves of London, which I've seen Werewolves of London a couple times. I think I've heard almost all their Werewolves of London they've done. Never been impressed with them. I don't think they work. I was fortunate enough, I went and saw them in Europe in 90, one of the London shows. It might have been the Halloween show. It might have been the first. But they encored with, or they played Werewolves of London in one of those shows. The best part of that was running around the tube, the underground afterwards, and everybody's howling. Must have annoyed the Brits to death, but the Deadheads, including the Brit Deadheads, were having a good time. So that was the only Werewolves of London I really enjoyed. But yeah, so anyways, it's an interesting show and it's an interesting release, and I do think it's worth the release because the drums I think is spectacular, and the first set is really really strong, but for the most part the second set has the good lovin' kind of hurts, the not fade away never catches fire, and the around and around is kind of lethargic, and that kind of just kind of hurts the momentum of the entire second set. But I think it's worth checking out. Give it a listen if you can find it somewhere. Definitely the first set has some good energy. The nice Staying Alive tease, I think it's might be between like Big River and Friend of the Devil, or it's early on in the first set. That's kind of fun. And the disco energy throughout. A lot of just like four on the floor, just kind of like beats the drop in every so often. Really, really nice. Yeah, but that's about it. Where would I rank it? I would put it there. Yeah, kind of towards the bottom. I think, the bonus material on volume 2 really helps elevate that to quite a bit. The 76 is such an amazing, weird, exploratory energy. And then 77 is 77, and that's a great 77 show, but in a month, a May 77 show, but in a month of like epicness, great, falls down to number 5. So I would put it at 6. It's worth listening to. None of these are bad. They're all like very, very good. I would say so far the only one that is like the only two that are up there with sort of the top 10 to top 15 of Dick's picks are 1 and 2 so far. That 69-70 hybrid release, and then the 73 show. Everything else is just really, really, really good with moments that are absolutely spectacular. But the releases aren't consistently amazing. Yeah, and I would put this down at number 6. It's a good show for 78, but it is kind of inconsistent. And some of the lethargicness, some of the lack of energy that would haunt 78 kind of starts to rear its head in the second set. So anyways, yeah, that's it. Those are my thoughts on Volume 7. So if you check this out, again, these are all on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. If not, you can find them somewhere maybe if you want to check this out. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. You know what to do if you've checked this out or you have thoughts on this. Comment, subscribe, like, share. Go listen to more music because that's the whole point of this channel, to get people to enjoy music more. But that's all I got. Thanks for watching and enjoy your day. Peace, y'all.